And, well, talking of misdiagnosis, you didn't actually get diagnosed until you were how old, Penny?
I was 30 years old, Fiona, so it's a long time to wait.
Oh, and what had you been through up until that time? I mean, going right back, when did you first think something might not be quite right?
I think I was probably about two or three.
Really?
I've always known I was different. I've got a younger sister, Vicky, who there's only 16 months in us, and she's very much the opposite of autistic, so I always had that comparison point my whole life for what sort of normal looked like, and I always felt different, and I was bullied in school and everything like that. So.
Bless you. Well, and you say that people don't know what autistic looks like. What is it? What is it in your experience?
For me, it affects several things. It affects my sensory perception, so that's something that not a lot of people know about. So I'm hypersensitive to everything apart from taste. I'm undersensitive to taste.
Bright lights.
Bright lights, noises that other people wouldn't pick up, and an inability to filter those things. So if somebody's clicking a pen, that would be annoying to anybody, but I can hear that just as loudly as I would be able to hear you talking, so that's very distracting.
But that must be hard sleeping and things like that.
That's
then
it,
as well.
and coping in things like offices and classroom environments, things like that, you know. And then obviously there's the social aspects, forming social relationships, being able to cope with things like change to routine, or people not, you know, explaining what they mean. I like to say what I mean and mean what I say, but it's not something everybody does.
No, and there's a directness, isn't there? I think that a lot of people with autism are very direct with their manner and their speech.
That's it, and people can mistake that bluntness for rudeness, but there's no malice behind it. And then there's the language side of things, you know, language and communication. When somebody says something that's quite ambiguous, they may assume that people are going to interpret it a particular way, and, you know, 99% of the population probably would, but because my brain is wired differently, I'm going to interpret it differently from that. So I might take something literally or, you know, go a different way from how they are expecting.
Now, I know you had real problems, and this is when it really came to the fore in your own mind, when you made that transition, which is difficult for lots of children, from primary school to secondary school. That's when it all started really going on in your head. Are you thinking there is something not quite right
Absolutely,
here,
because, you know, my primary school was fine. You know, I didn't have the best time, but it was OK, but it was a very small primary school. And then I transferred to a very big secondary school with so many people. I was no longer, you know, the cleverest kid in the class. The thing that I'd sort of held on to as part of my identity was gone. And I was constantly aware in so many ways of how I got everything wrong. You know, my hair was wrong, my clothes were wrong, I wore glasses. But, you know, those external things, there may be things that people mention, but I think kids pick up on difference. It's the same for kids who, you know, are gay or trans or anything like that. Children will pick up on difference, even if you don't know what it is yourself yet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I know you loved Kylie and Jason during that period, but why was your love of Kylie and Jason different to maybe other teenage crushes?
It's the quality and intensity of a special interest, I suppose. Lots of people with autism have special interests, most people do. They might collect things or be very interested in a particular thing and try to find everything about it. And so, you know, other girls would have had pictures of Kylie and Jason on their wall. They might have, you know, a T-shirt or a lunchbox. I wanted all those things. My headboard was covered.
Had to be everything.
Yeah, I went to the library and would photocopy annuals and, you know, put together scrapbooks. And
it was almost a forensic love of them rather than a teenage crush.
Yes, I wanted to know absolutely everything, you know. And people might see that with One Direction, for example, now.
Yes, exactly. But yours was over the top, really.
Yes.
Yeah. So parents, you know, there might be parents at home, there might be young girls at home thinking that there's something different about them. What would you advise them to do? Quickly, if you could.
Quickly.
We've talked too much, Penny.
We have talked too much. I would advise talking to a GP or a Senko, but, you know, a special needs coordinator in a school about your concerns, because nobody's going to label you or diagnose you with something you don't have. The diagnosis procedure is quite strict and has quite a lot of criteria. But, you know, if these things sound familiar to you, it's well worth checking out, because if you can get support and early intervention, that really helps.